Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one giant book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, and talk about it, laugh about it, so on and so forth. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
That's right. I need to write something else because I'm sick and tired of hearing that. And
every week.
Yeah.
A new book. We said like forthcoming.
Yeah, do something.
Yeah. And Kaya Stravanis is joining us this week, the editorial director of Open Letter, Latvian translator, so on and so forth. And we're going to be talking about the final section of the final, whatever you are.
Yeah, she does some stuff, so on and so forth. She dabbles. Anyways.
We're going on to talk about the final section of the final book in Rodrigo Frazan's trilogy, The Remembered Part, which I finished last night, guys, and I'm ready to talk about this. I'm ready to get into it. I'm ready to break it down. The ending is spectacular. What did you guys think?
Brian, do you want to tell him, or?
As always, it was too long, too many references. It's whatever. What did you think, Kaya?
Too many references. Too much in the boat.
I'm sort of hard pressed to remember anything.
Sounds about right. Is there an author that he doesn't like or doesn't want to thank or think is great? That's what I want to know. Have an opinion.
So my gag was going to be that I did not read any of the Vernon Subutex, which we are talking about today, but I did end up reading most of it, so I will be able to participate in this conversation. But part of the reason I did not finish it on time was that I did finish editing or doing a read through of The Remembered Part by Frazan, which is this thick. If you're watching on YouTube, it is 762 pages in manuscript form. It is literally a monster. And I was like, I'm never going to finish this. It's like late at night, I'm exhausted. And then I hit page 746 and it has the end. And I was like, whoa, holy shit. And I'm like, there's like 16 more pages to go. What is this? And it's the unforgettable part, a thank you note, which begins with 3 pages of epigraphs and then ensues with like 10 pages of thank you notes that are densely listed individuals, artworks, songs, movies, whatever. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's like, there's even a preface where Rodrigo's basically like, I know you guys hate this, but like it's the last book, so like here's everything.
He really is a sweetheart. He tries not to act like one, but
he's very fun.
He's a joyous person.
So actually what we're doing this season is reading 3 volumes of Vernon Subutex by Virginie Despentes, translated from the French by Frank Wynne. And we are in volume 2 and we're up to page 219 for today. And I guess we can start with you, Kaya. How have you found, this is your first Virginie Despentes reading experience, correct?
Yes, this is, yeah. These are the only, I read the first one, yes.
And what do you think of it? You got any opinions there? What do you think of the Virginie Despentes as your first?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if there was a follow-up question to that or a follow-up statement. So I read the first volume with you guys, and I still really, really enjoy this. I think it's great. I love that it's like a soap opera in book format. So I've never read anything else by her. I know the rest of you and everyone else who has been, a guest on this season has read King Kong Theory or other things by her, and I've read nothing, and I want to read everything she's ever written now after the experience of the first book and continuing the experience with the second one. She just seems like totally badass as a person, as an author. And I kind of can't believe, I'm just constantly astounded. I'm astounded that even this last chapter that we're going to talk about wasn't my favorite, and I feel like Dopele was written really weakly. But man, I still love this book, and I can't wait to finish it and to get to the third. Like I want more and more. And I do want to see the how they did with turning it into the TV series as well.
Yeah, Brian, you haven't watched the TV series yet, have you?
No, I don't have cable right now, so I watch ESPN on 2-minute clips on YouTube. Like the day after something happens, I can watch some sports. That's how I do it right now. Is YouTube clips or somebody that illegally streams it. So unless somebody illegally streams it to YouTube before it gets kicked off, that's the only way. You're more likely to get to watch UFC knockouts or something than because that's all you get.
You have to get on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
I get on TikTok.
This one has a seven-day free trial period for the streaming.
Oh, there we go. I'll have to do that.
You can watch it free for 7 days.
Which streaming service is it through?
Topic?
I have no clue what that is.
I believe it's part of Hot Topic.
That seems like a brand that would sell fanny packs or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Topic.
Topic.
I find it interesting because
knee-high striped socks.
Yeah. Like in a film, for instance, like the hardest thing is the second act. That's where everything drags. In a book, the middle part, like, is where, stuff starts to drag. And so I'm wondering too, like in a trilogy, that middle movie is where you kind of have to like do all that extra lifting. And so like we're in the middle of the middle book. So like this should be the most dragging, like part, right? This should be the doldrums, and it's still fun. It's still a good read, and the pages turn fast. So I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, it's also it reminds me of
I want to jump in really quickly.
Yeah.
I want to jump in quickly and thank this week. This is also the section where we find out who the second dog is.
Yes. This is true. I saw that. I marked that in myself as well.
Like, this is perfect. I get to be live for the reveal.
I want to go back in time for 2 seconds here and tell you the name of. I'm on Topic's webpage for their streaming service. It's a flagship streaming service from First Look Media, curated for a curious and engaged audience seeking smart, provocative, and meaningful entertainment. Okay, including among Topic originals includes some show called The Letter Room, something called Dark Woods, blah, 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 and then a show on mental health called What's Your Ailment? With an question mark and an exclamation point after it.
By the creators of Seriously, What's Wrong with You?
What's your ailment?
What is your ailment?
Good for Mental Health Awareness Month.
All right.
Is What's Your Damage copyrighted?
Why You Hurtin' is another good name for such a show. Kaya, are you on the right Wi-Fi? First of all, you might want to check that. And Brian, in response to the thing about the middle section, one of the things that Kathy Acker used to talk about once, I referenced it earlier this week because it's in my mind, was that she always liked the middle of everything the best, because she's like, the beginning is like setting up the chessboard, the ending is going to close that, but the middle is where like all the weird shit has to happen.
Yeah,
and like, it has to be in flow and in flux, like in Shakespeare plays in particular, I think she was talking about, where like you have the the beginning, and then it really does have like everyone bouncing off one another. And there's a bit of that here, although I think this is all pretty consistent to me. Like it's pacing. It doesn't have like a big difference, but and even like, what is the starting point? Vernon getting kicked out and you set the table, or is it the tapes being recorded, or the tapes being found, or tape being listened to? There's all sorts of like, what is the beginning questions that one could ask. But what did you think of this section, Brian?
It was fine. It was not my least favorite, not my most favorite. To me, it's just kind of like a little bit of housekeeping. I like the way it tied Celeste back into things, and how she actually, again, she's a puzzle piece that fits on all sides as well, like every character is in here. So it was neat to see how she fits the puzzle with her relationship with Aisha, giving Daniel his rockin' Black Panther tattoo, and then the whole thing with like Vernon, and then being the person that the femme fatale that seduces her way into the guy's apartment. So I thought it was really neat. I liked how her character came back around, because the first book she was just like very quick window dressing. We didn't really get to learn anything about her. There was no depth to her whatsoever. Just kind of like that really funny interaction with Vernon that kind of displays how old he is and how undesirable he is to her. And then like she's out.
Yep.
And so it was really neat to see her come back. Like, oh, I remember her. Yeah.
I don't even think we got her name in the first book.
I think we did.
Did we? I know it's in the cast of characters, but
yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was even mentioned, because I think that's the only scene that she was in that first book.
Because he had mentioned like looking her up on Facebook or something, right? That was the scene where she's like,
No, did you notice? Did you notice? So we've been joking about that Facebook thing. Did you notice that Celeste, who makes fun of everyone who's over the age of 30, that she's the first one that talks about, or maybe she's not the first, but she talks about Instagram exclusively.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Instead of Facebook.
Yeah, she's on a different platform than them. Yeah.
She's young and hip.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It would make sense that she would be on Instagram, because she's painted as being like wildly attractive and really like hip and like tragically cool, right? And so that's a perfect for Instagram, like extremely visual, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my favorite part of this was her and Aisha talking about their plans of how to get revenge, and just how like, oh, I'll help you out. This sounds like a terrible idea, but whatever, I'm down.
I love that too, both for like we talk about the idea in a second, but I love that she mentions that bit in there where it's like, this is how people fall in with Vernon's group, is that they say something preposterous and stupid, and then you're like, why would you do that? And then a few minutes later, you're like, oh, fuck it, sounds like fun. Let's go harass this poor guy. Kai, are you back? Nope, totally frozen.
She lucked out. She froze in a good spot.
Wi-Fi, and I'm on the EXT, and I tried switching it just in case, and then I lost everything. So
you might need to move to a different location. I
always had a joke with my wife, Katie, whenever we're watching something, if you pause it at any moment, when you pause anybody on a video format, they look drunk, because like one eye is closed and the other's not, but yours froze at a really, like, you looked intriguing. You didn't look drunk at all. So you lucked out. You passed it. You broke our test.
It's my general lack of facial expression.
This is my lack of caring.
That's true. Oh my god.
Yeah, because in this section, I was less intrigued when the older group were all hanging out together and kind of chatting and doing their thing. That didn't interest me as much. But when it switched over to Aisha, is when I started to lean in more into this section. I liked it a lot more then.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, that first part where it does move, just to recap for anyone's listening, the first section that you're talking about with all of them is that Vernon doesn't stay at anyone's house after they watch the tapes. He's like, no, man, I need my freedom. And there's even a bit where he's like, being inside and being around people is fucking weird. Like, I just want to be out and alone. And then everyone starts coming to the park to where they stay and dropping by and hanging out and becoming like a cult of Vernon. So it's a foreshadowing moment.
Vernon is the embodiment of the mask mandate being dropped.
Yeah.
All I see is parallels with the pandemic times, man.
Yeah.
I like too how he's a hobo that has a Grey Goose parka.
Yeah. So, I don't know who it would have been that would have bought it.
He's a tricked out hobo. He's been tricked out.
And he spends a day getting a mattress.
But it makes sense. That's probably like the way Paris is, because it reminds me a lot of when you're in Northern California, there's just randomly really, really rich people. And I'm sure every town is like that as well. But in like bigger cities, there's just like a lot of money concentrated amongst groups of friends. And so, like, yeah, here's a jacket. It's $1,000. Like, I wouldn't buy something under $1,000 here. Like it's not preposterous, even though, like, to me, that is outrageous. That you could own a piece of clothing that's $1,000, let alone be a bum in it. But like, yeah, that's the circle Vernon and all his friends, like, they roll in. Like,
yeah, they bump up against big money a lot.
Yeah.
Even like, I mean, from Dopele, Alex Bleach, there's like people who are like wildly successful.
Yeah, or just even like within the porn industry, like
Yeah.
the ex porn stars were doing very well at that as well, and that's a cash game, right? So
Especially if you're really good at Tetris.
yeah,
This is what most porn stars practice in their downtime.
I just don't get, like maybe it's just me always being poor, but like, how does these people afford to have cocaine all the time? What the hell?
Is cocaine like a drug that like has like a weird secondary market where it's real cheap for certain people? I don't understand that either.
Because hey, man, I'm down to party, but I just can't afford it. So I drink box wine.
Can I just buy like 1/4 of one line? Just a bump for me.
It's just for the TikTok video for me. I just want to look like I do it. Like I'm cool. Yeah, but I don't obviously. So too poor.
As Brian drinks a cocktail with a slice of lemon peel in it.
Yeah. Homemade, baby.
Our glasses don't have stems. We can't afford stems.
I wish I could afford cocaine. I just sip a martini. Sounds like something you'd hear at a Paris review party.
You could afford cocaine if you were a TikTok star.
There you go.
That's the difference.
When did they start passing out scholarships for the TikTok house?
Yeah. They need to give Doug Feldick a TikTok.
That sounds like a miserable. I don't want to get into that game. That sounds absolutely miserable to me.
Fair. So we got the Vernon's part, and they're all hanging out. That is foreshadowing of
probably a lot of lice around.
But then there's Celeste bit where Celeste and Aisha go and harass Dopelay's son. And you get like I think it was last week, Brian, we were like, well, after hearing the tapes, like the only thing you can really do to get, anything is to get revenge and to go fuck with these people. Instead of like, you're not going to get legal recourse. You're not going to get arrested. There's nothing bad's going to happen that way. The only thing you can do is like fuck with them. So apparently,
I think Patrice mentioned something to that as well, right? Like rich people do whatever they want and get away with it. We can't do anything. Or I forget who it was, but somebody even just mentioned that in this section as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like, they don't believe, I mean, it might have been, Daniel has a whole bit of like, well, this just goes to show that like, they can just kill us. We don't count. Nobody's going to pay any attention. They just fucking kill us. Like, especially like sex worker, like whatever, it's not going to matter. So they decide to go around and people that they knew about Vodka Satana and or abused her in one way or another, they go and spray paint or paint all over their houses, like rapist, murderer, like various things. Which have you seen the movie Happiness?
No.
It's from what is that guy's name? Is it Tad Salon? Something like that. And it's super, super funny. It's super dark and it's super funny. But as part of it, this kid's dad like molests little boys that come over to their house and gets caught. And there's a scene in there where like he wakes up and goes outside and people have spray painted like child rapist all over the house. It reminded me of that. And the reaction was the same as what it is in here, where he's like flips out and is like, this has to be covered up immediately. Take care of everything. And like for all things that as silly as it seems, like Celeste says, like it's you're just spray painting words on these people's houses. They do get really pissed about that. People don't like it. But I think we should try that out. I think we should go to Mayor Lovely Warren's house and spray paint on it and see what happens. Spray paint user.
That might end poorly for you.
Yeah, I think it would. She's good with the police. I think we're done with me getting shot.
She's pretty Teflon, dude. Good luck with that.
If that woman, this is an insider joke for everyone that's not from Rochester that listens to this, but our mayor, who is like embattled for ages now, her husband was, their house was suddenly swarmed by FBI and searched last week, and her husband was found with $100,000 in cash, $60,000 in cocaine, and like a bunch of guns. And she's still running for mayor, and the primaries are in a few weeks, and she's probably gonna win.
That was one of my favorite, like one of those meme videos or viral videos, was where the Mega Millions was at the highest, and it's live TV. And what are you gonna do if you win? And the guy just looks up and goes, "Cocaine and hookers." Goes, okay, and we're done here. That's like, man, you're high on the hog in Rochester. What are you gonna do? cocaine, cash, and some guns, baby. Like, what do you mean? What am I gonna do? This is awesome.
This is the best.
I'm living my dream.
Treat all your friends at the summer barbecue festival up by the lake.
Yeah, I'm super curious though. With I find it interesting that there's this kind of triangulation of Vernon falling for a trans woman, and then there's this interest with Celeste and Daniel, a trans man, right? And like how that's going to triangulate between their interests. Because I think I found it interesting that like Celeste doesn't get what the deal with what Vernon is, but then she's like oddly enamored with Daniel, with like his style, his beauty, his grace, like in the same way that Vernon was just like, I don't know, I just love her. I can't explain it to you. So I find it really interesting that there's that mirroring that's happening between Celeste and Vernon. I'm really curious how that plays out, and what Daniel's role is with that.
Yeah, and she does have like that mixed feeling, because there's one point where she says something like, well, Daniel's trans, and like, you know, for 12 million years, men have been men, women have been women. Just
she has a I was surprised. She has like that real hardline stance of like, this is gross, and I'm not into that, but I'm really interested in this. I like that. Like, so yeah.
She's also horny as fuck throughout 90% of her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too.
It's like, you're talking about trimming bush, and I want you to be licking mine is essentially like what she says. There goes the last few listeners.
Which is weird because she's so young in this book, and you think that someone, you know, of Vernon's age would be less. I mean, Vernon is remarkably open-minded for a 50-year-old at this point in time, you know, in terms of race and sexuality, and even housing situations. And Celeste is like, all these 30-year-olds crippling around the bar with their old man wallets and song choices, which fuck you, Celeste. He's not old. But yeah, and she's like you said, Brian, she's intrigued, but at the same time is like, oh, I don't, you know, what would my dad say? What would my parents say?
Yeah, so like, what's her ailment?
What is your ailment? Yeah, exactly.
I feel like this could be a game you could play with it. And maybe what's your ailment is the best opening line for now post-pandemic times, where everyone's weird and doesn't know how to interact. Just sit down and go, what's your ailment? Tell me your ailment. What's your ailment today?
At the bar, just some rando, instead of, hey, what's your sign? You come here often? Hey, what's your ailment?
I'm going to try it tonight at this party. What's your ailment? So they
burn those bridges.
What I don't know what else to say about Celeste thing. I have a hard time talking about Celeste thing here because of what I know is going to happen, and I don't want to say anything. So like I'm so dancing around that whole
spoiler free zone. Like, oh, if only you knew. I really like this Luke and Leia relationship. I'd like to see that, you know, I hope in the second movie they really kind of intensify that, because
get it on.
You know, he saves the princess. I'm really interested what happens there. I'd really like to see that grow more. I take that all back, actually.
Avoid saying that one again.
Yeah, so that whole Luke and Leia thing.
But Kai, what sections you really liked? You were reading it last night and laughing at her parts and seemed to really like her.
Yeah, let's get into read some lines.
Oh, specifically, I do remember you mentioned this, and then I got to it too. Is that she says it's colder than a witch's tits, which is a long-standing debate because Kai's mom says it's colder than a witch's kiss, and I was like, it's not fucking kiss. It's never been kiss. It's colder than a witch's tits.
Yeah, it's a tit.
Yeah.
Well, here also is the first time I've seen it used in the plural. Usually I've seen it as cold as a witch's tit, just the one. It's like one hot tit, one cold tit, which I was shouting.
Yeah, as you get more ghetto, it's a titty. It's called the witch's titty.
Titty. Yeah. I was apparently shouting tit very loud and debating tits very loudly because Chad pointed out that the window was wide open and that people had not only walked by and stopped and like like had turned their heads as they walked by, but I apparently had stopped and circled back to stand in front of the house and listen.
Yeah. And to hear what was going on.
I have a translation question. This one jumped out at me in this section. I think it was during the Aisha and Celeste section. So it's younger, young adults talking, and they say old codger.
Oh, that is weird.
And there was another book, I think it was Story on My Teeth, maybe, that had old codger in it as well. Like, it just seems like an odd thing that in English, I don't know if we say old codger all that much, but it gets translated. And just like, I don't read a lot of translated literature, but I have 2 different works now that have old codger in a really voice-driven narrative. It's kind of strange, like that popped up. I'm wondering where that comes from, but I don't use codger very often, but it feels a little antiquated to me. But
old codger was popular in 1830.
That's what I mean. Like, it's kind of like a sailor. It feels like something that would be like in a Melville book or something. But yeah, old codger. That one jumped out at me. I mean, that's like super picky, whatever. But if it's so good, you have to find what jumps out at you, right?
There are those words that I think only end up in translation. There's like Tim Parks wrote something about that with like, there's a term that it was like a weird situation where like back some years ago, there was a Italian book in which the term for like tennis elbow was translated as something like very medical and strange. And that was like the only time that word had been used. And in this new translation, like 30 years later, the person translated it the same way, but it's only referring to that same first time that it appeared, and that it was like, if you look it up, what does this word mean? It means this, but that's not actually what it means. It means tennis elbow, but nobody ever had done it. And so it just kind of replicated itself. And I feel like there are a number of terms, and maybe codger is one of them, but I would make the argument that the word gaze shows up more in translations from than has ever been used or spoken in the history of the world.
That's your pet peeve.
It is my pet peeve because it's just, you never hear it. And then
except for now, male gaze. You
male gaze.
Like
that's
the male gaze a lot, but that's a thing, right? Like,
I gazed out the window. I'm gazing out the window now. How are you? I'm gazing out the window. No, you're fucking not. You never say that. Like, you're not gazing out the window, but it shows up a lot. I bet there are other words like that you could think of if you paid more attention that are just like translation replicated word choices.
I'm curious to get your opinion, Kaya, before we tap into whatever we were doing. I forgot what we were talking about, but when you're reading something as a translator, are you kind of questioning, well, like, I like how this sounds, I wonder how they did that, or do you just read it and enjoy it, or are you always constantly like, reverse engineering or thinking about the translation struggles that are like the gymnastics that the translator is doing to get it to be so effortless and nice as this is?
Now she looks drunk.
Gross. Maybe like angry drunk. Not like angry drunk.
I keep moving the computer. I keep trying. I would say it depends on the book. I mean, having edited for so many years as well, there's a part of that I think is maybe the first level, but that's also the easiest one to shut off, is the editorial aspect of it. And that's kind of, I mean, I do see like little word choices here and there that I think are interesting. But then the editorial part kicks in and is like, well, I've seen that before. And then, the translation, it is hard to parse that. I think I find more frequently with Slavic and Eastern European books is I can see similar patterns to how things are translated. And those have come from in the language. But I do generally, like we were talking about yesterday, that even just as an experience of, Celeste being young and talking about being young, and even just the way that Frank has translated that. I mean, I mean, he's translating what Virginie is saying, but it's so like he has to get the same age groups that she does, and so you can feel. I think you can really feel how much he's worked on getting all of those idiosyncrasies of the ages. And one of the other times, or two of the other times, I've really felt as a translator completely astounded was Breon Mitchell's translation of Gross's The Tin Drum, and Edie's translation of Don Quixote, where just like reading the book and recognizing the patterns or the tricks that are going on in the book, and also recognizing that the translator had to nail those in order for them to work like they do in English. But
especially in high stakes works like both of those, where you're dealing with
for sure,
monoliths, yeah.
But like pestilential was one that I underlined because that was very interesting. And that seemed like one of those where you go a little too far, either as a translator or as a writer. Like that's like a word I would expect to see in Frazan's book, for example.
Sure.
And then within a few pages, you have, Celeste talking about how this group of people is wacko and they're whack and like MDMA and time flies, and then you have pestilential and other things.
I marked on her slang on 189 where she says some guy who looked really sus was crouching a couple of yards away.
Soup sus.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that answered the question. I think it is hard to parse out sometimes, but I believe I'm able to shut that part of my brain off when I read. And
just read. I always try and find typos or edit it. That's how I pulled out my pen for a second. Was like, oh, that thing's gonna be backwards because I don't think I'll listen to this, but Will Vanderheiden has in the remembered part every single quotation is backwards. So and there's like, I don't know, 40,000 of them. So I keep expecting to see that in every market.
Yeah.
No, I get what you mean in that, Kai, because I know for me, like I'm always trying to reverse engineer, like how would I treat this character? How would I write this scene? What moves would I make to get the same feelings across? Or how would I want it to sound different for certain lines? And like sometimes it gets in the way of the experience of enjoying of the book, because like once if you know how the sausage is made, like it's difficult to enjoy the sausage, so to speak. But I find myself not doing it very much with Subutex, because again it's such a blast to read. It has so much energy that you can just let yourself go, and it's a lot easier to turn off than with other books where it's super critical, or how would I have done something different? Or,
absolutely.
And with everything, I'm always like, how do I steal this? How do I add this to my quiver? Of course, but
your quiver.
Yeah, my quiver.
Okay, Robin Hood.
I'm an old codger. What can I say?
You should, it's not even add it to your arsenal or add it to your submachine gun. You got a quiver.
Yeah, my quiver.
You're the kind of person
your
photo a
satchel, your manny pack.
Yeah.
I love. So they do go. Celeste and Aisha go to across town to see a speech or a presentation called "What is a Performative Exhibition?" It's pretty funny because
we never find out.
And they cough throughout it, but the person who's
what are we gonna do? Cough. What?
Cough.
Yeah, we're gonna cough. It's gonna mess him up.
It's gonna fuck him up. He's gonna get so self-conscious. He's gonna make a disaster of it.
Sounds like a Rick and Morty plot.
His description is pretty wonderful. The description is pretty wonderful. The speaker is a guy of about 30. He has shoulder-length hair, and though he doesn't have the standard issue hipster beard, he has the look. But he probably gets around by bicycle and spends a lot of time in Berlin.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Berlin is the kicker.
Yeah. I liked those little I'm sorry to interrupt. I liked those little like one-liner quips that these characters had. Of just like, yeah, like I was chuckling at that last night about, because it's so perfect. I mean, if the only way it could have been better was like he probably rides a fixie and spends a lot of time in Berlin, and you'd be like, that's the type.
Yeah,
that is who it is. So good.
So he'll know Vernon because he's into vinyl.
Yeah.
He'll ultimately know Vernon.
Exactly. There's a, and then the kind of irony of the whole thing is that they go to do their performative exhibition, coffin, blah blah blah, and he sucks, and he can't even give a speech as it is, and they don't have to do anything because he's just hopeless.
So awkward.
Well, all of it, the whole thing is subverted because he's terrible. His dad doesn't respect him or like him very much at all. It seems like
his dad, yeah.
Yeah, and then when they trash the place, he's kind of like, "Oh, cool, they trashed the place. This is neat. Maybe I can have somebody come over and take pictures, and we'll call it art."
Well, because he turns out to be a curator of graffiti.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they did everything wrong, but also perfectly right. And he's like, "Yeah, this is like, okay, red Tagger pen, like size 86 point. Okay. I'll take some pictures. Maybe I'll just leave the apartment as is. Yep. Like, he's like, I can see why my dad was upset about his part, but like, it was so curious."
I just want to say that I like the phrases that she graffitis throughout his apartment all over, including "curse the rancid pussy of the succubus who gave you birth," "bourgeois shitdick," which is maybe my favorite term of the moment, "filthy money grubbing bitch," and "die comma fucker," which has that great bit where he's like, he's really impressed by the grammatical nature of the comma in "die fucker."
There's Nazi grammar, he called it.
Yep. Hey,
but even that, like, instead of garnering outrage, it's like he's treating it like, he's critiquing it. Like,
get him on their team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's interesting that they used the feminine in order to slander me. I wonder what, like, he's like going into the way that insults even are, right?
Yeah, he's curating it. He's curating. Yeah. He's curating the insults. Yeah, it's like they just, and that's one of the things that to me brings me back to that the sort of soap opera-esque part of it, is because in this world, it would have been so easy for anyone, including the hyena who's part of this, to do a little bit of homework and find out that this guy is, has like everything from ADHD to like, probably a mild gluten allergy, and was an art curator and has a terrible relationship with his father, and that wrecking his apartment isn't gonna, I mean, at most it's probably gonna gain them an ally from the sounds of it, but like they just didn't do their homework. And that seems like one of those super easy things that any of these characters could have researched, and they just didn't.
Yeah, it's the perfect Virginie Despentes move as well, where she gets you behind their plot. Like, yeah, this sounds awesome. Let's do this. And they do it. And then she shows you the other side of it, where it's like, this was a terrible idea. I don't know why you were with these two ladies and performing this act of revenge. This is a terrible idea. And like, she plays both sides wonderfully again.
And he was more enthralled with Aisha than with Celeste.
Yeah.
He just like burst in and like crashed his dinner party and then roofied him. And like,
he feels sorry for her, right? He feels sorry, like, boy, this poor thing just kept like coming on to me. It was really sad and pathetic. So like, I probably should just let her go, but fine. It's just easier to come home, whatever. But the girl in the hijab, like, I kind of, she was standoffish. I'm interested in her. Like, I want to get her respect. Like,
because they also, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm done.
He also already figured from the jump that Celeste, that they're using him to get to his dad. Mm-hmm. But he also has misread the situation. He thinks that she's probably an actress or something like that. Yeah. And then so he wakes up to the graffiti, and that's, his interest is piqued. He's like, not an actress.
Just a angry graffiti artist.
I like how Aisha's like, how are you going to get into his apartment? And Celeste is like, guess. And she's like, God, disgusting.
Gross. I don't want to know.
And Celeste is basically like, hey, I've got your back and I've got my own back in this situation. I'm going to scratch your itch and scratch mine.
Yeah, Aisha's neat too. I mean, because like if Celeste and the hyena are her friends, like these are odd pairings for how fundamental they've set her up with in her religion. Like these are people she shouldn't be hanging out with the way they lead their lives or their view of the world. And I like that that's the complicated world we all live in this book.
And she does seem a little bit different than she did at the beginning. She seems a little like when she first had her conversations with the hyena, she was very reserved and like taciturn, and her conversations with Celeste are much different. Yeah. And like in part possibly because Celeste runs into her and she just starts telling her like all about what happened to her mom. And has that like breakthrough, but like that has opened something up for her. That's given her a catalyst that is getting her on a pathway of revenge, which is great. And also subverting that, because there again, you have like it under normal circumstances, if you say like the Muslim character is out for revenge, that's like, oh, you mean a terrorist? Or are you stereotyping like Muslims? And it's like, no, she's like fucking writing murder and rapist on people's houses with paint, not like murdering them. So it's okay, but it's still like, and you're sympathetic to her, and like in a different writer's hands, that would come off as being either stereotypical, or they would create most likely they would create a stereotype instead of having her be the kind of character that she is.
Yeah, this section also has so much of people. It's not people using each other anymore in a gross way. It's like they're using each other to, for better or for worse, advance their own whatever. I guess not spiritual journey, but you know, I have this feeling that they're doing it for slightly less selfish reasons. Like they're all going to the park, and even Aisha's dad is coming out and talking to these people and holding court in this weird old man way. And there's the line, I sort of lost it, but I think it's talking about how Lydia doesn't really understand, or that the hyena was saying that there was something going on in this little group, something that she could not define, but which, when she spent time with them, was almost tangible. A pleasure at being together that was completely mysterious. They did not like each other. They had little in common. They had no interest in hanging out together. But as soon as they got together, there was a congruity.
So this is not to spoil things either, but one of the other things that they do together, aside from watch the tapes, is listen to Alex Bleach's like music that's supposed to transform your mind or whatever.
Yeah, because there's that whole, like he mentioned at the very beginning, and that's kind of been dropped, and we've lost that thread. But yeah, there's something about this hypnotic whatever. I'm trying to do music that alters your mind. When are we coming back to that?
And or maybe like the structure of the book is altering your mind, or the structure of their group alters their mind, and that could be like the sort of French political action philosophy side of this is that you make a new formation around a new center of power, and you create a new structure that can grow into something else. Like if the old structures are based on, money, being a male, being of a certain race in a certain way, like very much the dope play, the way to undercut that structure is to create a different structure that uses a different magnet to appeal to people and to create a different organic like community.
Here's a great example of this. On 174, you get where they don't necessarily like hanging out with each other, and then how they get together and are formulating their world. It's in the middle of page 174. They're talking about Sylvie, right? She can be a royal pain in the ass, but she's also a fucking good baker, which means that when she shows up, people are happy to see her show up. And just a little worried. She likes to bawl out her neighbor while offering him cupcakes. Lydia, Patrice, and Daniel are discussing whether Daniel Craig has revolutionized James Bond. I thought it's like such a fantastic way of like setting up like how these friendships are, how like the way they get along or don't get along.
And their friendships aren't like just them. Like I mean, Charles is included there. Laurent, the homeless Laurent, is included there. Olga's like best friends with, is it Emily or is it Sylvia? Sylvie.
I think Sylvie.
I think it is Sylvie too.
Yeah.
She's like best friends with Olga, who loves like who's her own beast, but she loves the dog. So we got to, as you said, we got to introduce the dog that's on the cover.
It's a geriatric poodle.
Geriatric poodle that Javier or Xavier got after he got out of the hospital because he's like all jumpy and freaked out after getting his shit kicked in. So people are starting to change a little bit too, and are moving in new arcs, I think, or their arcs are like they're continuing along them. We're getting the next part of their movement.
Vernon is the shaman of Europe.
Vernon is the shaman of Europe, as the Bolivian girls say.
Yep.
Before they like blow him with LSD or whatever. I don't know what happens there, but you get to see butterflies and shit. Like that sounds.
He turns into a bird.
Yeah. I found the part that I was thinking of with Celeste too, where it's on 202, where she says, "That's it. She has finally worked out how Subutex gang manages to mess with people's minds. They propose innovative activities. Quote, I'm planning a direct action. You want to come with? And at this time you say, no way, it's a dumb fucking idea. But 5 minutes later, there you are on the starting blocks. Between powerlessness and the great unknown, you choose the latter. At least it means action. It means making something happen. Go home with this guy, who's who's never done her any harm, and get payback for all the assholes who made her childhood a living hell. And she gets to help her friend in the bargain. Prove that she can be counted on, that they form a whole. She wants to be part of Aisha's adventure." Like there's that coming together of that too. They are Celeste and Aisha, like you said, Brian, are like totally different in terms of like of the way that they're described in their character nature. They're like the tattoo artist tatted up, working the bar, trying to get a nice tattoo machine so that she can quit her day job. And Aisha's like, absolutely not that.
Yeah. Do you think Aisha and Celeste were friends before Aisha became fundamental?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I know, doesn't it say like how they met?
Yep, it says how they met. Yeah.
Well, I fail reading comprehension. Sorry.
It was Aisha was hanging out in the park, and Celeste went to go sit on a bench and watch this guy like
chase
walk
off
up and almost spit in her face, and she threatened him with Park Patrol.
Park Patrol, hardcore.
No park too small for a park.
Yes, it's all coming back. I got it.
No.
No Park Patrol on a roll.
Just yelp for help.
Oh my God. Destroy that. So yeah, so I don't know, is there anything else you want to say about Antoine? Aside from his dad hates him? He could be, as I say, he could be a good ally, I would think.
Yeah, I think that's where it's gonna go, because he hangs around, and this is where we get back to Anais as well, right? Because his dad fires her right at the end of the chapter. Mm-hmm. The woman the hyena's been sleeping with. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, interesting, like he's sort of piecing things together to a strange intuition on 218 that she, being Anais, knows something embarrassing about him being his father, and that the father is aware that he has made a mistake in firing her. She is more likely to talk about whatever is bothering him if she leaves than if she is still in his employ. And so that sort of, sets Antoine on the scent as well, that like something interesting is going on. But what I'm curious to see, like, I think he's probably going to turn into an ally, but I'm not sure that his dislike for his father is strong enough to have him be that helpful, you know?
Yeah, because she set up to, Virginie set up, she's dropped us 2 hints. One, that he's interested in Aisha, and then he's also suspect of what's going on with his father. Mm-hmm. Right? We've got that like within 1 chapter. So yeah, I'm really curious how those two how that plays out for sure. It's a good point.
And I don't have anything else to say because everything I want to talk about is in next week's section.
All right, I'm good with you. That
This section has so many good little one-liners. Oh, can we have a moment to not just Vernon's parka, but these red cowboy boots that Olga managed to throw away for him?
I was picturing that too.
Somebody needs to I mean, I'm sure the movie or the TV show has a representation of this, but a picture of like some old crazy dude with like special blue eyes walking around in a parka with bright ass red cowboy boots would be amazing.
It's like a People of Walmart photo.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it sounds like Kid Rock taking a walk of shame in the middle of winter.
Yeah, nailed it.
I am Jesus.
I just need some nachos Belgrande. I'm gonna walk and find it.
I'm Kid Rock. I loved it. He's like had like there's like that little bit of like regular world sanity in him where he's like, God damn it, Olga, these boots are the nastiest things I've ever. Oh, I'm walking on clouds. Oh, they're so nice. They're my size.
And all these people are helping each other out in that
Is
way.
this okay? Is also I really hope the red boots, now that I'm thinking about this, are not going to be like he's becoming like a Dorothy and Oz situation where he's like leading all the Munchkins or whatever they're called back on the path to.
She leads the Munchkins? Oh, I guess she does, doesn't she?
Well, she doesn't lead the Munchkins.
They tell her to go on the Yellow Brick Road. The Munchkins tell her to go on the Yellow Brick Road. She goes on the Yellow Brick Road with the 3 other people that each have to overcome a character flaw to be able to, be full human beings. So
are these people not flawed?
Yeah, no. Why can't there be a Wizard? I mean, every David Lynch movie is about Wizard of Oz. There we go. Got it in there.
It is. Bye.
But it is, yeah. I'm at a stuck point with this one, guys. You both just because everything I want to reply to, I don't want to give anything away.
We'll save it for next week then.
I am.
I have a favorite line.
Okay, I want to hear it.
I'm ready for it. I also, I do want to, I know there are only a few minutes left, but I am really curious if anybody else thought that Dopele, I don't know if it's because he's angry, but just the way he talks on page 217, that's where Brian, you asked the question about the translator aspect, where that was the first part where I thought it sounds kind of weak or not well done, where he's shouting at Anais and shouting, "How dare you! I will not tolerate your uncalled for remarks about my friends. I have politely brought this to your attention on several occasions, so you can't say you haven't been warned. Where do you think you are? What do you take me for? Do you think we're friends? That you can laugh and joke with me? It's my fault, I suppose. I should have realized the first day you showed up. You lack maturity, you have no idea what is required of you, and to make matters worse, you're insolent. Who do you think you are? I've given this serious consideration and I've made my decision." Like, that doesn't really sound like a murderous rage to me. That sounds like someone who doesn't know how to interact with people. Like, it sounds very metered and it doesn't sound natural.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you read it like that.
Yeah. You kind of oversold the criticism.
It's funny, I had to take a plane ride and I watched the Maltese Falcon on it, the old John Huston movie. And the villains in it talk similarly to that, right? Where they're talking about their plot. Oh, you see, we've got it out of the Hong Kong and went onto the ferry. But from the ferry, what happened? Like, it's really fast and slick, and like I could hear that. I could hear that same style with that. How dare you! I will not tolerate uncalled for remarks about my friends. I have politely brought you to this. Like, it has that kind of like I'm making my declaration.
What do you think you are?
Yeah.
What do you take me for? Okay.
Really out of touch. Like, he's wicked out of touch. Like, he's not old. He's 52. He's the same age as Vernon, but like he's in his own little bubble. But
he's also a movie producer who, pays attention to popular culture, and I guess
you don't pay people to pay attention to popular culture. You just make some
I
money
mean,
and
it's just-
sex with movie stars.
yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe the dad is just as awkward as the son then.
I don't. It might be a thing where like
everyone involved in that is like a horrible human being. Anyone
I'm
that's
super sensitive right now to this because we just finished reading JR, and there's those long diatribes of like rich, powerful people, and man, is that slick dialogue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
So
it
I'm
could
going to
just
be the
be,
asshole who.
No, I mean it just could be that too. But
yeah. How did you so what was your favorite line, Kaya?
On page 176.
can you read it the same way you just read that last paragraph though?
The first way, the stilted way.
Yeah. 176. Hold on, let me get there.
176. It's Laurent is talking about the plight of the homeless, who's also like super trying to get into Pamela's pants. And they're like, they can snuff us out just like that. And he's basically like, oh yeah, it's like they treat you like they treat the homeless. We're pariahs. We're not even considered an adjustment constant. Do you know how many of us die every year? Do you know how easy it would be for them to house us all during the cold weather? No one gives a damn about the names of those who die on the streets. He perches on a low branch, feet dangling just above the ground, which is super ridiculous. It makes him sound like a garden gnome. But this is the line that I like. So Daniel says, "We live like dogs, we die like dogs," is Daniel's usual response. And Olga shakes her head. No, dogs have masters who mourn them.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love that.
Brian, I can't choose between the three that I like.
3, all right.
Let me just give you each one line.
So mine's on 185. And it is Celeste complaining about having to talk to people, basically, at the bar. In the meantime, every time anyone at the bar finds out she's a tattoo artist, they spend hours telling her about the tattoo they've always wanted to get. She feels like saying, I don't need to hear your life story. Make a fucking appointment and be done.
I love that. Too.
And I just like that a lot because I don't go around advertising that I'm an author or that I write or anything like that. But as soon as someone finds out, they want it. Oh, let me tell you about the idea for a book I want to write. I've been wanting to write it for like ever. And like, it's a story about a janitor that's an ex-Navy SEAL, and he infiltrates the Pentagon and stops the terror. But oh my gosh, I always have to hear about the tattoo I always wanted to get. It's like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Imagine what Dr. Pimple Popper's holiday life is like.
Dr. Pimple.
Hey Sandra, I've got this. Can you look at this bump? It's a mole.
Check out this lipoma.
There are the two lines that I like. Well, there's one thing I want to mention is that also when Xavier's in the park, that Subutex hugs him, and that's like a big moment for him. And then the lines on essay are, the first is Daniel, the Bolivians. He's like, oh, those Bolivians look cool. And he's like, yeah, the Bolivians are life, death, madness. They're super woke, which I think is great. And then the other, which is really the biggest question, the biggest pressing question of our times post-pandemic. But can a good father be an alcoholic?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Well, my mom says I'm like not ever really drunk. Just because I need a beers in the morning, it's fine.
The drunk dad stumbles into Christmas morning. Jesus' first miracle. He could have chosen anything with water and wine. I'm just saying. Open your presents. Hurry, I'm going to pee on them.